Welcome to the interview, everyone. I am with Emily of How I Became Invisible, and we're going to talk to her about her album that's coming out at the end of September. What's the name of the album?
The album is called Better or the Next Best Thing.
Awesome. I've listened to it. I like it quite a lot.
Awesome.
But let's take a moment to talk about the process that you went through to record the album, and then maybe we'll talk about some songs.
Sure.
So, did you go through the process of it? How DIY was it? Did you do a lot of recording in a studio versus at your house, and what was the process for that?
This album, as everything I've done since 2013, that was the last time I did a studio album. Everything since then has been in my various rooms, either my bedroom or my dining room, or occasionally other rooms if I feel like I want to get a different sound from a microphone or something. But yeah, this one was pretty much done entirely in my dining room, which is where my current studio setup is. Uh, I play everything on the album with the exception of one guitar solo that my friend Mark from the bands Danger Club, Take the Day, and Lame Gretzky, he plays a guitar solo on the song Better. And there's three guest vocalists on that song as well. My friend Joe Howland, who's a DIY musician I met on Twitter. My friend Candice Michelle, who's another DIY musician who I don't think is on Twitter anymore, and my boyfriend Sin Kettner, who's also has their own project called Sinful Ukes that I play bass for.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you have done a studio albums before, but you do this one was DIY. Do you prefer the DIY take on doing albums, since that seems to be what you're gravitating towards?
Well, it is infinitely cheaper, because I did, like I said, I did one studio album. I did a couple singles when a friend of mine who had a studio was running like a deal where it's like, I'll record two songs for $100. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, why not? That was the first official How We Became Visible recording, which was done like Jesus 15 years ago. And then in the midst of an existential crisis and in the wake of a fiance breaking up with me over email, from the other side of literal other side of the world, I was like, well, I'm finally going to write an album. That was not for like a band I was in or something, because I've been in bands for
Mm-hmm.
ever. And I was in a band at that point. I was in a couple, but the one that I wrote for was called Robots and Race Cars, where it was me and two other guys who were also songwriters, and then another guitar player. But we had three songwriters in the band. So it was never like, I have to write something for this because it's on the link. No, we all just kind of wrote stuff together. How We Became Visible was the first thing where it was just I was everything. And
Mm-hmm.
it all was like, well, what am I going to do with it? I had this idea about um, an album where each song was a planet, and then each song would be a slightly different genre too. So it wasn't all like, oh, it's all going to be pop punk, or I wanted to do like this big weird uh, genre
Mm-hmm.
mishmash. And I did a Kickstarter for it because like Robots and Racers had slightly big, but slightly more of a following than
Mm-hmm.
any other band I've been in at any point. Um, and then we broke up. But we're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
But yeah, so
No
I did
worries.
that one in the studio with a producer who was a
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine who's done a couple other records for bands I was in. But since then, it was a lot of money. It was like almost 2 grand to record 9 songs, and that's
Oof,
an
yeah.
unsustainable. That is an unsustainable price tag for someone who doesn't play shows and doesn't tour.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
understandable.
once I discovered GarageBand was free on the MacBook I got for other reasons entirely, I was like, well, I don't need to do anything else now.
Yeah.
So that was what kickstarted me doing this stuff. Was I was like using it to demo out stuff
Mm-hmm.
for other projects, and then I had like a severe writer's block, so I started messing around with like little electronic, like 30-second songs, and then this
Mm-hmm.
blew up into like full electronic songs, and then that became an electronic EP. Since then, it's just been just a train basically. Like I have an idea, I record it. I have an idea, I record it. I have an idea, I record it. Oh, there's an album. Um,
Awesome. Awesome. So you've kind of answered. I feel like my my signature question I like to ask everybody the first time they come on the show, but I'll ask it and see if you want to add anything to it, which is what's the origin story of how I became invisible? I think you've touched on that pretty good, but if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, the origin story was just another outlet for my songwriting because initially it was supposed to be all songs that were vaguely space or sciency related
Mm-hmm.
because I liked writing in that metaphor. Like the first album was planetary. It was all about planets. The EP I did, which was instrumental, was called Voyagers, and the storyline was supposed to be about like
Mm-hmm.
the Voyager space probes and how they launched and like were in contact with each other, and as they got farther away, they lost contact. I had a whole idea of like a concept album, which was going to
Mm-hmm.
be about it was a rock opera actually about time travel and multiple universes and like a kid searching for his parent and all that stuff. And then well, that was initially supposed to be a book, and then it became an album, and then it turned into the first Danger Club album. So that never quite coalesced. But and then yeah, it's like time's going on, it's become more and more just kind of a representation of what I'm going through in any given moment. So especially once the world ended 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 3.5 years ago or so. I don't remember the exact time. Time is an illusion and
Yeah.
nothing makes sense anymore.
Three
But
years, 7 years. I don't know. I've lost track
it's
of
still
time.
March 2020 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like since then, I've just been constantly recording and writing. I've put out, I think something like between albums and singles and compilation tracks and EPs, it's something like 90 songs since 2020 and something ridiculous like that. I don't know. It's a lot.
It is a lot. I've listened to your discography that's on Spotify on shuffle, but what I'm hearing from you is that maybe we should be listening to albums cover to cover to get the whole concept and space vibes.
There is a definite narrative that's kind of gotten away from me a little bit and that I know what the story is. And it actually goes back to Robots and Race Cars. The last Robots and Race Cars album leads into to my first How I Became Visible album, which leads into the first Danger Club album, and then the second Danger Club EP, and then everything else I've done and How I Became Invisible. I can I explained it to someone once, and they said, "I don't know how you came up with that, let alone how anyone would be able to understand it." I was like, "I don't know either. I'll be honest."
It's
On an
the
individual basis, I think they make sense. Trying to tie them all together is just a nightmare.
it, it's a cinematic universe, if you will, or
Yes,
whatever.
it's the Emily Cinematic
Yes,
Universe.
that's awesome. So let's talk specifically about the new album,
Mhm.
space vibes and stuff in this one.
Not really. This one is better than Next Best Thing. Went through a number of permutations as I
Mm-hmm.
was writing it. It was initially supposed to be like a lot of shorter songs,
Mm-hmm.
like minute and a half long songs. It was going to be like 25 tracks or something like
Mm-hmm.
that because I like the idea of writing like micro stories
Mm-hmm.
and having like a lot of like eliminate a lot of the extraneous stuff that happens when I feel like bands get into I need to do a thing and it has to have an intro and has to have a really long solo and I need to like get all this into like the
Mm-hmm.
maximalist tendencies I find within myself, especially when it comes to recording, is I want to put like 17 guitar tracks and also there needs to be a choir and also a piano and why not? Let's put on the ukulele. Um, I need to have horns. I can't play horns. I can fake horns with a synth. Um, and trying to get away from that, but it never quite came together.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a little bit of it on the album in terms of there's a few shorter songs on there, but as 20 I wrote this and recorded it
Mm-hmm.
in 2022. So it's very much a representation of a very specific snapshot in time for me where I have I've transitioned. I'm a trans woman, so I transitioned. I'm medically transitioning. My partner, my spouse, we separated in 2020. I moved out on my own in late 2021. I've have a new partner. Well, not new. We've been dating for like almost 3 years at this point. Um, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. Time is an illusion. And so like going through all these big conflicting emotions while also the world is literally ending multiple times over. Um, It was a lot.
Yeah.
And like having like existential crisis and panic attacks and all the stuff that happens when you have a lot of anxiety and depression,
Yeah.
as one does.
Yeah.
Um, and just trying to put all that into a cohesive story um, kind of influenced where the album went, where it went from being a bunch of short little songs to I know what the story is. I start at one place and end at another. And it's the idea that the unifying theme is that better is a word that can mean so many different things to people. And what does it actually mean to you? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to anybody? And how that can shift and change as time goes on. So
Amazing.
that's where it's at.
Yeah. Let's talk about your first single, "Better."
Mhm.
I think that kind of encapsulates at least how I understood it and perceived it. Kind of what you're saying, because it gives off vibes about like trying to overcome, trying to become better, trying to overcome. I assume maybe a relationship, but um, maybe I'm wrong. I yeah, you know, but that's kind of what I like. I listen to it, and that's what it means to me. Is this like I get this sense of wanting to be better and that struggle to do that. Why don't you explain to everybody your intent behind the song and how you feel about it?
Well, you did nail it in the idea that it is very much the thesis song of the album. That between that and one of the tracks, I think was right before it. Yeah, Lake City Quiet Pills. They're kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
twin linchpins of the album in terms of like the emotional crux and the story thesis. Better actually was I wrote that originally like 10 years ago.
Ooh.
Um, and it's gone through a number of mutations and rewrites and stuff since then. The only thing that currently survives from the original version is the ending section where it's I'm not bitter, I've just been better. That whole part. Um, it's there is very much a little bit about relationship stuff in there, but a lot of it is more about um, losing what you consider a part of yourself. Not necessarily like a relationship, but it could be anything. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's in my case, it was very much inspired by the death of my sister, who passed away due to complications from a lung transplant 10 years ago, and she had a lung transplant due to cystic fibrosis, which is a progressive genetic disorder that affects the respiratory system and the digestive system, as well as others. I also have cystic fibrosis, but I've never had a lung transplant. I am on the good meds right now,
Nice.
which they did not have available for my sister when she was going through all of this. And going through all that and like wanting like not understanding what like people like, well, at least you're doing better than she was. Or like, well, what does that mean? Because I don't feel like I'm better. I feel like I'm getting worse. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
then years later, getting on this great medication, which literally makes me physically better, feeling like I'm a physically functioning person. And then that affected, my mental health, where I was like, oh, hey, my head's clear. I think I'm a woman. And then all this other stuff. So, like, the idea that, like, one little word can cover so many things while also at the same time not feeling like you're those things.
Yeah. That's really amazing. Now I want to talk about. I want to get the name right because it's a long one, but there are songs like "Better" that kind of sell people the album, and that's usually why they're the singles.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, there's always at least one song that makes me fall in love with the album, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about "I'm Not a Nihilist, but Everything Is Fucked" because this
Yes. Yes.
song means like it is such like a for me anyways it's an emotional roller coaster because this you read the song the title of the song and you think well this is going to be one of them bummer songs like one of the
Mm-hmm.
doomer songs and then it starts out really sweet and there's bells or a xylophone in the intro and then maybe a cello uh
I remember. No, I think it was like an organ.
okay.
I think. is like the drone sound in
Yeah,
there.
in
Yeah.
the background, and it's all very sweet, and then it picks up in tempo like pretty quickly, and it's not a frantic pace, but it makes you feel like you go from sweet, and then it picks up, and you're getting a little like it makes it's like a little anxiety you let the with the change of the pace, and then you start singing, and it's about like time, and then at the very end of the song, this song is 1 minute long, right?
Hmm.
Everyone that does not know. And at the very end of the song, you say, I want to get it right. It's and then suddenly you arrive in the future and you don't even know it. Is that
Yes.
and then it's got this, to me, this like calming joy like effect at the very end, and then it just ends shortly thereafter, and it's just this thing that just it really hits me and affects me on a, like an emotional level, and I just listen to that song like so many times.
Awesome.
Probably half the listens on your SoundCloud that you sent me is me listening to that song, because it just does so much for me. I love it so much.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. I you that is the biggest compliment you could give me, right? You just said, because that is literally what I wanted the song to be. It was supposed to be, well, first of all, I wanted to write a folk punk song. So that's where like the real quick, like the breakneck part of it is. But then like I'm like, how do you just start one of those? You can't just start it. And then it turns out no, you can, but I just didn't want to. Um, but it was supposed to be like the idea of I had a panic attack. And about, I have a lot of anxiety and all the time about everything. And trying to get that across in a way that wasn't like scary, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the moment when I was like in the middle of what caused like what I was trying to get across with this, it scared the shit out of me. I was in a grocery store and just freaking out because like I'm like, why is the whole room wavy? What the fuck? Um, but yeah, and like getting through that, like yeah, you get through it, and then it's tomorrow or whatever. I mean, not literally. There's not like time loss. I wasn't. I don't have missing time, and then I was abducted by aliens. That's a completely different part of the album. Um, I didn't. I can't say that I didn't write about cryptids on this album. Uh, but that's maybe the next one. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, the idea that yeah, it's bad, but it doesn't mean it's forever. Like there's the other line, the line I really thought I was going to get shit for, which or I still think I'm going to get shit for when people hear is like, I never wanted to kill myself, but that doesn't mean I don't want to die. That's a like I wrote that and I'm like, that's a dark line. Are you good, dog?
Yeah. Yeah. That line kind of hit with me too. So,
Yeah,
um,
that was a dark time for the rebellion.
yeah. Yeah, I love the song so much, so I'm glad
Well,
you
thank you.
wrote
I'm
it.
glad.
It's definitely by far my favorite song on that album.
I do have to shout out. I got the title from my boyfriend. That was a line they said at some point just in conversation. I'm like stealing that, and they're mad at me because they wanted to use the first song title and I got it first.
If you turn your homework in first, you're not the one that's cheating. The
That's
first one
true.
comes
That's
in
true.
after.
No dibs were called.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we've talked about two songs off the album. I want to ask you if there's any song from the album that you're particularly proud of that we haven't talked about that you would like to talk about.
Mm, Um, I mean, I kind of love all of them. This is, uh, I feel like this album as a whole is the most direct and undiluted uh that I've ever written or released. Where like everything else has had this heavy, even when it feels like this is a confessional thing, there's a lot of metaphor, like in the planets thing or in my album with the wave returns to the ocean, where there's like a lot of ocean metaphors in it. Or um, I did 3 EPs throughout 2021, which were me grappling with my marriage falling apart. That were very heavily the theming was the five stages of grief, and like doing them in order throughout the three EPs. So it was like very like, okay, I have to figure out where this song goes here in the story. And this one, it was very much, well, I'm just going to write about what was happening to me. So it's less metaphorical in general. I think the song I'm proudest of might be Ellipsis, because that's towards the end of the album. It's the next to last track. It's a heavier song than I normally do in terms of like I wrote it and recorded it in drop D tuning, which isn't a tuning I use at all, really.
Mm-hmm.
I had to use it for a couple songs I learned for other people, and I'm like, this is my brain doesn't work this way. Um, but I'm trying to get more comfortable with it. So I wanted it to sound like a little bit heavier and a little bit like darker, a little bit fuller, I guess. It was me listening to a lot of Manchester Orchestra, if I'm going to be honest, especially the album Cope, which is a really good and really heavy album. They're one of my two favorite bands. And just everything they've done, I've loved unabashedly. But it's a catharsis song,
Mm-hmm.
which is I feel like very important to have when it's something in this album in particular where everything is like everything's terrible and we're all going to die and I'm going to die and oh my god everything I have anxiety, holy shit. And then to that very end, like being like, yeah, everything still sucks, but I do have good things and you have to keep those in mind. Like so I like the line from Lake City Quiet Pills, which is still afraid of fucking up the good things. But then it repeats again in Ellipsis. It's like, but I see them now and I keep them close. So like the idea that there are good things, and even when things are bad, you have those good things with you. I feel like that was a good note to kind of put there. So it was not all gloom and doom. It wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
Spanish love songs album. I love that band, but oh my god, does that album hits every sort of like, oh my god, we're all gonna die note for me. I love Spanish love songs so much. They are very depressing.
Sometimes you just need a good the depressing doomer
Oh my god, no,
situation to
you're not kidding.
just mellow out to, and you go like, maybe my stuff's not so bad. Okay, I got a couple more questions to round things out. They're morbid curiosities of mine. First one, the title of the song "The Elephant's Foot."
Yes,
Is that a reference to the Chernobyl slag
100%,
pile? Nice. I
100%.
saw that and I was like, I like that.
That is a pet obsession of mine. Uh, Nuclear accidents in general, and nuclear and radiological accidents and incidents, but Chernobyl specifically. Um, During the pandemic, I watched the miniseries and a lot. It was like the Chernobyl miniseries and all six Alien films were the one things I watched probably more than anything while everything was shut down. I keep saying during the pandemic, it's still going on just because no one wants to admit it. It's still going on. Mask the fuck up, people. I could say fuck. I've already said it. Whatever. There's a question inherent there somewhere. But yes, it was 100% a Chernobyl reference because I love's a real strong word there. I am very interested in all of that stuff. Um, Especially the aspect of hubris and human arrogance that in human arrogance via capitalism,
Yeah.
which was also very heavily in the other thing I got obsessed with at a very, very, very young age, which was the Challenger explosion, which I saw happen live on television. And that broke my brain, I think.
I think I might have missed that one. So on television live, I definitely don't remember it, but
It was in 1986. I was preschool or kindergarten. I don't
okay.
remember which one.
I would have been 3, so
Yes.
that's probably why I don't remember. Okay. I'm actually being told by Zoom that we're running out of time, so we're gonna probably have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, 'cause I don't want to pay for Zoom. So, real quick, shout outs to anything that you, friends you want to shout out, any projects that you find meaningful that you think need more eyes on, and also where people can find you.
uh, I would say go check out this band, my band Danger Club, dangerclubpa.com or Danger Club on Spotify or wherever else. I sing for that band. We just played a show with this band from South Jersey called The Looms, Looms. They are amazing. Look them up. They're wonderful. Look up the band Tonsil Hockey. They're a punk rock band out of Brooklyn that are all my friends, and they're wonderful. And the band Flying Raccoon Suit. They're a ska band. Everyone listen to ska, dance your ass off. You can find me at howibecameinvisible.com or How I Became Invisible on any of the streaming services, or M-Reed, EMDASHREED, pretty much any social media. That's going to be my name. I'm on Twitter, not going to be on Twitter much longer. On Instagram, I post videos of me playing acoustic songs normally. And I'm on Blue Sky, which is primarily where I am, which is m-reed.bsky.social. Warning, I am extremely unhinged. Album comes out September 26th.
Awesome. Okay.
Go to the website. You'll probably be able to pre-order it. There will be cassettes and maybe some surprises.
Vinyl, perhaps?
There will maybe a vinyl component, not the album on vinyl, but maybe a vinyl component. I'm releasing the record with A Few Good Records, who's a wonderful record label. I love them so much. They've helped me immensely with this album.
Yeah, they usually release tapes, I've noticed. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm hoping to get some good vinyl treats then, maybe.
Awesome.
Okay. Last question. Pick a song. It can be off of this album if you want, or from your discography of that you want to play the interview out to.
Oh, that's tough. I have so many songs. Yeah, I'd say pick the newest single, Lateral Move. It's about liberation and self joy in the self euphoria, and about being trans in a world that doesn't really like people to be.
I actually like that song. The line, it's like the second to last line in the song where you say, "If no one's ashamed, then no one's to blame."
Yep.
I love that. You have like so many really good one-liners on this album that just hit. And that is definitely one of them. I like it a lot. So
thank you so much.
We will be playing the show out to Lateral Move, and thank you so very much for coming. I really appreciate the time that you've given me and given the show, and you're more than welcome to come back whenever you'd like.
Legit, anytime. Whenever someone wants to talk about my music or specifically lyrics, I am there, because I never get this opportunity.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. That's the interview. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
My name, but I still hear it all the same, swinging back and forth like a street sign in a late fall hurricane. Just another tiny island in a vast binary sea. I can't relate to that right now. I've got bigger fish to lead. My name is not my name, it's an echo of who I used to be. It's sitting there between my legs, but your attention shouldn't be what you've got under your skirt. None of your fucking business, man. Whether sir or ma'am or that one there, or whatever I say I am, and don't forget it. Girl who never found what she thought was the way. to blame.